This is the one you do not want to miss. I am so excited to be here. I'm going to take my seat next to these two esteemed gentlemen and introduce myself. I'm Mark Josephson. I'm an entrepreneur in residence here with Yale Ventures, and joined today really by two very impressive people. We're going to learn a little bit more about them, but to my left is Doc, who you are going to learn a lot more about today as truly a kind, caring, generous soul, widely recognized as one of the most influential poets of our generation. And you will come to see as he shares his wisdom today why that's true. Among other things, Doc was a founding member early in NWA and Death Row Records, widely known for mentoring Snoop, Dre, Eminem, and really setting the tone for one of the most influential cultural movements in our nation's history, and has an incredibly compelling story. I'm lucky to be sitting next to you today. You won a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Grammys. This is sort of my Lifetime Achievement Award to be able to sit next to you talking about this and hearing your story. And then to your left is Chris Gannett, who is a new friend of mine prior to this. But our lives have crossed paths a couple of times without us knowing, actually.
That's right.
Including when Chris was the chief marketing officer for American Idol at its heights, with a storied career in media and entertainment. And Chris now runs Gannett Partners, which he describes as a boardroom as a service, and includes all of the great things you get from a board in building a venture, but from coaching and capital raising to strategic planning. And he helps people build businesses and platforms off of their visions and their experience. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So this story is about voice. This story is about having one, losing it, then fighting to come back and capture it again, and then building with it. So, Doc, thank you for being here. If you can't, you can tell how excited I am to have this conversation. When did you first knew you had an important voice?
When I think back on the journey, it was very early. It was maybe 6th, 7th grade, 13, 14. And coming from the inner city where I came from, where domestic upbringing is probably not as rosy as in other places, my voice, the fact that I was a great mimic. So when people sang, I could do it.
Yep.
And that made me friends, made girls like me a little bit. And then I was off to the races after I figured that out.
Do you remember the first time you wrote your own lyrics?
Yeah, and actually they weren't mine. There was a game called The Dozens that kids played. Yeah. I was really good at it. And this is before rap in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, where I'm from. There were dance groups, and people knew that I was really good with words. And the guys in this dance group asked if I would write them some sort of intro so that they could use to enter some contest. And so I did. I wrote it, and it turns out that none of them could perform it. And so I had to perform it. And that was really the moment I understood that I had a place, in sort of the total picture.
Tell us more about the Dallas and growing up there and what that was like, because we're going to come back to that in chapter 3 of this story today. What was it like to be 15 in Dallas when you were there and where you were?
Well, by the time 15 came, I had become well immersed in the idea that I was going to be a great rapper. In fact, I knew it. I knew it, but those things didn't exist then.
Yeah, who were you looking to? So from 13, when you wrote your first lyrics for someone else that you performed, to 15, knowing you were going to be one of the greatest ever, who were you looking up to, and how were you able to know that that could be a thing?
I was, in the early days of rap, it only existed in New York. It didn't exist in Dallas, so I was competing against those guys. I don't know if anybody's familiar with rap, but when I really got the bug, it was, Run DMC, it was their time, and Crush Groove during that space and time, and Slick Rick, and KRS-One, and a guy named Rakim showed up. And when Rakim showed up, I think I decided that in that moment I wanted to be better than him. And so I started competing against him in Texas when nobody was really doing it.
How did you know what great was? And how did you know there was an opportunity to be great?
I think when everybody has gifts, every single person is really good at something without trying, whether it's singing or dancing or playing golf, or building a business, Some people are just good, and I was really good.
Was anyone looking out for you, or was it innate?
Yeah, it didn't exist, so nobody had any. You had nothing to compare it to.
Right.
It just was. And then some people knew it, most people didn't. It was just something that the kids did. You can't make a living out of that, And my parent, my mother, she said, either and so she wanted me to go to the Army, and I'm a lover, not a fighter. It's true. And so there was a group of guys in LA who had made a record called Boys in the Hood. They had visited Dallas, and one of the guys who produced that music, his name is Dr. Dre.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
And he heard me rapping in the bathroom.
Yeah, this is a famous story. So, where were you? Like, you at a club, or you?
Yeah, it was a skating ring. It was really in the early days.
Fancy, yeah.
Kids, and the kids congregated in the bathroom to battle rap against each other. And during the time I was learning how to rap, I was ditching a lot of school. I know that's probably not what the people at Yale want to hear, but I just didn't like school. It didn't fit for me. And so I would wake up in the morning, my parent would wake me up and get me ready to school, and then go to work. And I would go into the bathroom and turn on the shower and lay down on the floor and go to sleep. And when they left and go to work, I'd wake up about noon.
Water still running.
That's right. And I figured out it was about a 2-hour walk to school. That allowed me to arrive at school just about 3 o'clock in order to catch the bus and ride home. And I spent those 2 hours learning words out of the dictionary. I picked 2 or 3 words every day and studied those words, how to spell it, how to sound it out, the meanings. And when I got home, I would use those words on my parent to make them think, wow, this kid's really studious. And when rap came, all those words were already there.
Yeah.
And so when I would battle rap against these other kids, I was using words that they weren't familiar with in ways that they didn't understand. And I think Dre heard that, and he was like, wow, you're one of the best I've ever heard. If you were in California, we'd be rich.
And you're 15 years old?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And so when my mother threatened me about a year or so later with the Army, well, when Dre said, come to California, in that moment I was like, no, I don't know anybody out there. I'm not coming out there. But when I got the ultimatum, it sort of gave a new light to that idea.
You had another choice.
Yeah. I gave Dre a call and he was like, yeah, come out. And I did. And that was the beginning of the journey.
All right, so you go to LA at 15, 16.
I was 16, 17.
16, 17. And they're working on an album? You're working on an album?
Yeah, they had begun working on a record on this kid, Eazy-E. Mm-hmm. And the day I got there, they took me to the studio and they were building a song that we ended up calling We Want Easy. They asked me if I had something that could work to it. I wrote the song. And a couple weeks later, it was the #1 song on the entire West Coast. And after that, it was Eazy's record, and then the NWA album. It was a really colorful time. I wasn't from California, so I was nervous and scared and fearful because the crowd wasn't my crowd.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're sitting at an innovation summit, and here you are at the center of a global, transformational, innovative moment in culture. Did you have any idea?
I know I was good,
Yeah.
I know I was good. I know I was better than them, and because they hadn't, LA at the time, New York was the Mecca. LA hadn't found its voice yet. And I could help them sort of enter into that space because I was competing with New York.
Yep. So you said they were working on a record, and was that Straight Outta Compton?
That was Easy Does It.
Easy Does It, right? And then how many albums were you selling? You mentioned to me before, you were driving the car, but from the back seat from a lot of these guys, metaphorically. 16, 17, by the time you're 18, how many albums are we selling? What kind of impact are we having?
I went to LA 17, 80, 1886. It took 18 months. We had sold 3 million records in that time. And then we were getting ready to make my record.
Yeah.
Those guys, they're very territorial. I was probably hard to deal with. I was really impressed with myself. And I was a little arrogant. I didn't mind telling those guys how good I was all the time.
Well, you were writing half their stuff, if not more.
I was writing a lot of it.
Yeah.
But they weren't allowing me to flourish in the same way that everybody else was. They were making money. I wasn't doing any of that. They were getting accolades. I wasn't getting any of those, and so I was just biding my time, waiting on my moment. But having to wait brewed a lot of animosity, made me very angry because I thought that they were holding me back on purpose.
Yeah.
And so I got deeper into those things that keep you from growing in a positive way. I got started drinking a lot just to fit in more. I started hanging out with this guy named Suge Knight then, who was feeding the fire. It's all because of you, Doc. You're the greatest. You start to believe your press clippings after a while. And then I made that my record.
You made your record. The record was called?
No One Could Do It Better.
Okay. And as it turns out,
no one did it better.
No one did it better. How'd that record do?
Yeah, I sold the album was released in August the 1st, 1989. In 2 months, I sold 750,000 copies. That was a record for that time.
Yep.
And man, I was living the dream, you know.
Yeah.
And
You were getting the accolades that you had craved.
yeah, it was happening.
Money was flowing.
No, the money hadn't come yet.
Okay.
But the accolades.
The
did.
accoutrement.
Yeah, man. Everybody knew that this was the guy.
Yeah.
It's his turn. He's about to take over the whole everything.
So you are ascendant. You are about to take over the world. You're about to go on tour, shooting some videos, I think, that day, right?
Yes.
Tell us, do you remember what day was this and where were we?
Yeah, it was November the 9th and 10th over a weekend, shooting 2 videos. I was supposed to go on tour on the 16th. I was leaving to go on tour. And so, excuse me.
Yeah. Take your time. We can move.
And so, it just, you know. And so I do the 2 videos over the weekend. It's a lot of work for a young guy. And I'm falling asleep a lot, and someone says, I got something that'll help you stay up, you know. And they introduced me to an illegal substance, and not knowing where I was, who I was, and what I was doing, I accepted it. And over a 24-hour period, I was just up in the air, living a life, shooting these videos. And after both are done, it's about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm driving home, and whatever I was on wore off, and I fell asleep in the car, and I was ran into the center divider, was thrown from the vehicle, bounced on the 101 freeway for a while, and slammed face first into a tree on the side of the highway, about a mile away from where the car ended up. Took them a few hours to find where I was. When they found me dangling in the tree, and head injuries, but no broken bones. Everything was perfect.
All things considered, yeah.
All things considered, and I make it to the hospital, and I wake up about 3 or 4 days later, and I'm here, but my voice is gone.
And thank you for sharing. Not easy. When you first tried to use your voice, did you know immediately?
Yes, there was no voice. It was just a really light whisper. And the doctors told my mother at that time that they didn't know that there's a possibility it could come back. And so I rested in that space, that it's going to come back. And I waited, and it never came back.
Never came back. Now I need a minute. It's such a powerful picture for someone who has such a strong voice. And even now, knowing you only for a little bit of time to know how strong your voice is, to have your identity in your voice. What happened next?
Well, as you can imagine, it was tragedy.
Yeah.
It was really difficult to deal with. And, all of the things that the worst things that you could fall back on were the only things that helped. And all I had was I could still write. I still had that gift. And so I still used that gift and gave it to Dre and gave it to Snoop and the Cube, and I helped those guys as best I could because it was the closest thing I could. It was the closest thing I had to success.
Did it feel like you were giving voice? Your message, your poetry?
When I wrote songs for the guys, I always put my name in the record. They got mad.
Somewhere in there.
Why do you keep putting your name? But it's the only way I get to stay, you know. But they ascended and I didn't. They were going up and I kept going down. I couldn't stop the fall. And I just kept getting in trouble. But I continued to provide that service.
Doc, who was there for you? What was your support system during this time?
I didn't have one. You know, I was literally just dangling, you know, and I'm a spiritual guy, you know. And I believe that journey was mine. It was purposeful.
Do you believe that now?
Yes.
Did you believe it then?
No.
No.
Then I was just dying, you know, figuratively. Literally, there were suicide attempts. I couldn't figure out how to win. I couldn't figure out how to get out of that hole, you know. And my contemporaries were winning, and so I didn't want to crush their momentum by leaning so hard on them that they couldn't enjoy their time, you know. And so it was my burden. I carried it. I felt like I couldn't go home. You know, it was a tough time.
Yeah. How long a period was this? From the accident to, it gets better, guys. So we're going to pick up
This whole journey of self-discovery took 35 years.
Okay.
When I lost the voice in '89, signed those contracts with those people, literally gave all of my art away. G.O.D., I tell folks all the time, it's a G.O.D. thing, it's not a D.O.C. thing. He knew, she knew, that there was going to come a time when those things were going to be useful again for me. And so when you sign these record contracts, there's something that they call the 35-year reversion rule. I'm in that year. This year is the 35th year for me. So that means all that early work I did, whether it was on Ruthless and Easy and NWA, whether it's my record, whether it's on Death Row with Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, all of those works began to come back to me this year. That means finally the money will start to find its way to daddy's pockets, you know. But even more important than the money is the opportunity. One of the things that showed up is the story resonated, the story of resilience, the story of perseverance, the story of spirituality and making a way through no way, resonated with so many people that they asked me to make a film about it, which I did. The people at Tribeca saw the film and in 22 asked me to premiere the film at Tribeca, which I did. Show business has a way of being just a dirty game. And so they weren't being as willing to give me what I thought the film was worth. And so I said, you can't have it. You know, I've lived this life already. You can't have any more. And this story is way bigger than me. It's going to be meant for somebody that's going to save somebody's life. And so I said, you can't have it. I kept it. A year and a half later, AI happened.
Yeah, so the epiphany that we talked about earlier today, you and I, is that before the AI moment, which we're about to get to? So just tell us briefly about that, then I want to talk about the phone ringing on AI.
Well, it was the whole film thing came from, and I don't want to get too deep with you folks, but the whole thing came from what I would call a moment where my higher power came and spoke to me and said that I could let all of those 35 years of pain go, that it wasn't me that did it, it was he that did it. There was a purpose for that accident, and I was about to walk in that purpose. That's the year I made the film, and I've been holding on to that promise that this is all purposeful. That was before AI happened.
Yeah.
And I held on to that film, knowing that there was a purpose for it. And a year and a half later, AI happened. That was last year that the record company started talking to me about making an album using AI to recover that old voice.
All right, so tell us, that's fucking amazing. Sorry, for first panel today to drop the F word. But when did you first hear about, and Chris, we're getting to, I promise. When did you first hear about this AI concept? Or when did your phone ring?
Yeah, it was about maybe a year and a half ago. And people had started talking about it. And I had gotten past it, after my aha moment. It wasn't about being the greatest rapper anymore. It was about being of service. It was about taking those lessons and passing them on to the next generation of kids. Because if I came from where I came from, I know that there's another me out there. There's another little girl or little boy that isn't connected to the opportunities that exist for the student body here at Yale, or any of the other universities, and that there's a perspective that gets lost in those of you who are building businesses that could benefit not only you, but these kids. There are aspects that you'll never understand because you don't come from that lack, that are going to make them come up with things that are going to take your ideas to the umpteenth level because they're just trying to figure out how to get from A to B.
Yeah, so it's a great segue into meeting Chris. So, Chris, how did you meet this guy, and what was the first thing that you guys were working on together?
Well,
the mic works, right?
Yeah, I guess it does. Wow. Thanks. Well, first off, since I've met Doc, I've said that he had to lose his voice to find his purpose. And when you're building a company, nothing draws people to that founder like purpose. Kevin Ryan this morning said, leading a student organization is a great training ground for building a startup because people don't need to be there, right? But people are attracted to purpose. And we were introduced by the Dallas Regional Chamber. I also am from Dallas. We are men of a certain age. And I left Dallas to pursue a different music dream and lived in New York for 20 years and moved my family back also for purpose, to be close to extended family, get my kids closer to extended family. But since I've been back, my background is building businesses, transacting businesses, principally in media, entertainment, and tech. And I was interested in doing that in North Texas. And I'd also been interested in ensuring that in the region that we live now, which is exploding with growth, that the prosperity was inclusive, that everyone benefited when the tide rises. And a fellow member of Venture Dallas, which is a similar type summit here, who works for the Dallas Regional Chamber, said, you should meet, do you know D.O.C? And he said it in like a Snoop voice. Do you know D.O.C? And I was like, your name is Dwayne Dankesreiter. You can't say it that way. But I said, no, I don't know him, but I obviously, I'm aware of his work. And we were introduced because Doc was involved in this film project, and just wait till you see it. It will absolutely knock your breath away. But also had been experimenting with voice AI, with a range of kind of household names, LLMs, that are focused in music, some of whom are getting their pantsuit off by the recorded music companies for reasons of maybe unethical AI, and we can talk about what that is. But he was interested in building a constellation of for-profit businesses that ultimately would create value for a nonprofit that gets to the point that Doc was saying about creating a platform for kids like Doc at 15 to find their way into a $3 trillion media, entertainment, and technology industry. And with some experience doing that, they put us together. And what my business does is basically create, we like to say create enterprise value out of vision, convert vision to enterprise value. And we've done that. And so I've been of service to Doc since we were introduced. And together we have built his nonprofit, Doc Cares. And you tell me if that's where we want to go here, but it is at the heart of a lot of what Doc is doing.
Yeah, I think I want to make sure we spend enough time on Doc Cares and the initiatives you're doing, because, and we jump over some of the AI stuff, we can come back to it if we have time. But flagship initiative, we started this conversation, you were 15. Now you're talking in building for 15-year-olds. What are you building?
I'm building the machine that I needed at 15, because I understand the holes. I understand the dreams, pun intended, that are getting swept under the rug. There's a nonprofit in Dallas called 40 Cliff that's helped me understand that there's a truancy rate of nearly 50% of high school kids in the super block in the neighborhood that I was raised in since COVID. That means half the kids are just like, screw it, I'm not going. There's a reason why football players and basketball players and baseball players go to school and make 3.0s. They can see their future. They can visualize whether they're going to make it to the NBA or MLB or not. They can visualize their future, and so that causes them to make that trip every morning to school and to work hard enough to get a 3.0 because they believe. The kids that don't run so fast, the kids that don't jump so high, the kids that like to paint, the kids that have a decent voice,
the poets.
The poets, they're overlooked. The arts, for the most part, have been taken out of school. And you give these kids no real vision that they can have that's going to make them want to go to school. They want to be me. So at the same time, I simultaneously am everything they want to be and everything they need to stay away from.
So what's the name of the program?
The school is called the Dreams Experience Academy, the DEA for short. Because you got to know how to talk to the kids in their language. When they see DEA, they're automatically attracted to it. And then when they find out that it's something positive, they go, oh, hell, they'll do it anyway. And once I get them involved in their own future, and it's something that they want, then they become invested in their own future. Once they get access to the dream, the world becomes theirs and not something that they have to watch somebody else have.
There's a poet by the name of Bruce Springsteen who talks about, it's actually related to his his treatment for depression and anxiety, but he talked about having a standing facing a brick wall. And the treatment and the support that he got was it was the equivalent of them removing individual bricks from the wall to see that there was something behind it, an opportunity behind it. And it strikes me that with the Dreams Experience Academy, you're showing a new generation of people that there's another world, there's another opportunity.
That's exactly correct.
And Chris, how do you build something like this? And how do you a not-for-profit is not a business model? Tell us more about.
Yeah, we like to say it. Not-for-profit is a legal classification, not a business model. So what Dreams Experience Academy is one part community-based learning program and one part student-led for-profit business venture. And one feeds the other and vice versa. So in this particular instance, we are essentially using an after-school classroom to create a real-world incubator for students to see and realize real futures in media, entertainment, and tech. And what it looks like is, to answer your question directly, is we're building this through partnerships. We call it the Coalition of the Willing. And the way that we're doing this is aligning with a curriculum partner called Big Thought. They're North Texas based, but they serve about 1 million students in after-school programs. Their expertise is the creation and delivery through multiple modalities of a lesson. They are building what I would call our container, where we intend to hang our hat. One of our kind of key points of differentiation is building a cutting-edge curriculum focused in a few specific growth areas within this $3 trillion media, entertainment, and tech opportunity, which for us is gaming, music, the creator economy, and software development, which is largely anchored in McKinsey's top 15 tech talent trends. So where $200 billion worth of equity is being invested in these specific jobs. But we're partnering with for-profit companies who are at the top of each one of these respective sectors to fill that container with subject matter expertise and develop these lessons that are in practice now. So we're a complement to a 2 or 4 year university program.
There was 2 panels ago, I won't try to remember the names, but talking about the different paths that are available, and actually the dean of the engineering program here was talking about alternate paths other than the 4-year Yale experience as being really important. What's an example? Give us an example of a student or a success story we're hoping for.
Yeah.
A happy path.
Well, we're piloting our first cohort this summer.
Great.
So we've been doing this for 18 months. We're building this like a technology startup, rapidly iterating and bringing best-in-class partners alongside us. We'll be running 40 students through 2 different cohorts this summer in a game development curriculum. And through the course of that experience, they will be designing a video game. And they will learn how to package it and market it and pitch it and so forth. Through the course of that, they will hear from our partners, subject matter experts who will come and speak to them, including the former CFO of Roblox, the former head of Marvel Game Studios, et cetera.
Are we going to be doing job placement?
That's the goal. Yep, that's the goal. Is we are creating the Terminator of entry-level employee. So in a world where our target audience doesn't have an uncle at Roblox, no warm intros.
Right.
Where our issue
Still building at Yale.
is not yet. It is rooted in a lack of access and opportunity. We're getting those stakeholders. We're getting Roblox, knock wood, to help us design the curriculum, commit to taking some interns or providing a practicum type experience, letting them shadow executives, and in a perfect world, giving them that opportunity afterwards.
Removing some of those blocks to see the opportunity. Doc, what does it feel like on the ground? What's the response been, and how do you feel doing it?
Well, the kids are excited. You can see why having Chris as a partner is such a great thing. He understands so much more than I do. For me, it's much more elementary in that these kids want some money. You know, they want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to be acknowledged.
Have you met the venture capitalists in the room?
Well, there you go. You know, there's a need for the venture capitalists in this room to know these kids in order to know what they're missing.
Yeah.
There's a need for those kids to know these venture capitalists, to know what they're missing. Mm-hmm. So it serves everybody, you know, and I'm a creator of commerce. I understand the altruistic nature of what we're building, but I understand inside every human being is a little greed. Yeah. And so I count on that. So I want to build something that makes money for people. You know what I mean? If you help me, I'm going to turn that into commerce for you.
So hopes and dreams for your day at Yale. Why are you here?
I'm here because, like I said, I'm a spiritual person, and Yale is a part of my journey now. Everybody in this room, I don't know any of these people, but somebody in this room is supposed to hear this, and I'm supposed to meet somebody in this room, and they're supposed to say that I'm a great judge of character in a person, and I understand that you have something to give, and I want to help you give it. I helped Dr. Dre make $1 billion. I helped Snoop and Cube, respectively, have hundreds of millions of dollars. I want to help somebody in here do that. You know, I want to help those kids do that. Somewhere along the line, I'm gonna get some twos and fews for myself. But the legacy that I choose to leave behind is way bigger than a dollar sign, right? I got 2 young boys. I never have one of these kind of things where I don't speak about them because they have become the most important thing in this 56-year-old man's life. My young boys, I want to do good for young men so that when I'm not here, somebody's going to do good for my young men. You know, I believe that wholeheartedly. Doesn't matter what color you are, doesn't matter what background, what socioeconomic standing you come from. We're all in this together. And the administration, and I don't want to speak ill of anybody's color background, but if we don't figure out that we run this ship, and in order for us to win, there has to be a we in it. Otherwise, it's going to fail. Either we're going to win together or we're going to lose together, you know, and it's up to us one way or another.
So we're going to take some questions in a few minutes if people want to get ready to do that. And I also, I'm going to repeat a call to action, a CTA. I'll do it now, I'll do it again, but this is a non-for-profit doing profitable things and doing wonderful things. So please come on up after if you have an idea, if you want to give of your time, of your energy.
And I want to hop in. I want to add one more thing to the kind of the model conversation, which is just to pay off this duality of the Dreams Experience Academy. So we talked about the community-based learning, but the business side of it is the expertise and the cutting-edge skills that we're transferring to our students. They're able to immediately put those into practice on the commerce side. So the student-led business is being stood up to provide specialized services to Fortune 500. And specifically, this is one of the unique benefits of being in Dallas-Fort Worth. There's over 25, I think 30 Fortune 500 headquartered there. And all of them want to reach the market of our student profile. Yeah. And our student profile will be uniquely positioned to help them build a presence on Roblox, or to create endemic content that resonates like no agency can create for them, right? And so we're creating this unique, specialized, premium product, service product that can be delivered not only to customers in our market and nationally, but the projects that Doc is involved in, and just to revisit the AI album, his work, and I'm speaking for you right now, so bring me back on path.
No, go for it, bro.
Is he's been experimenting with AI voice solutions for 5 years now, roughly. And what he's seen is kind of like this space between wanting to do well and wanting to do good, right? Is something's missing. And for him, what he realized, and this is unique to a rapper, is breath. So if you listen to AI voices, it may mimic the sound of your voice, but it doesn't sound human. And so the humanity that's lacking in the current solutions driven by AI for people without voice can benefit from someone who's been training the model with Dre and Snoop for 30 years. And so his work in the AI space is culminating in real time with a landmark recorded music album that will be the first to be embraced by the recorded music industry ever. Setting precedent in perpetuity throughout the universe for anything that comes after this. And our students will get to work on that, right? Our students will get to help produce this landmark piece of art. In addition to that, we're filming today because the feature-length documentary has been opened up again because the original storyline didn't have this detail around his work in AI voice. But it will now. And the students will be able to participate in making that happen. And through the business side of DEA, they earn money too.
Great.
All right. Yeah.
All right. Do we have any questions? Any hands up from around the room? Eliza, we have one right over here. The lovely and talented Eliza Josephson.
Hi there. My name's Hope. Whoa. Former Texan myself, Plano, where I grew up. So I know a lot. My dad worked in Oak Cliff, so I know a lot about the kids you're talking about. Now I live here in New Haven, and I lead the Arts Council of Greater New Haven, which is a regional arts service organization. And and I think there's long been a case made for how the arts is an economic driver. I have a lot of data about this now that we work with partners on, but I keep puzzling. I also keep talking to folks about how I have this singular goal in my time in this leadership position, which is to move the economic needle as far as I can for artists and creative businesses. And I'm really resonating with what you're saying about I want to make it profitable for the for-profit ventures that are here in this community and in this state. But I really keep puzzling over this question about what is the for-profit, I'm also speaking to the capitalists in the room, like what is the thing? Because artists don't usually create exclusively for the ability to make a ton of money, right? So are there other models that you're seeing or other ways that you think about this of being able to pull in the capital and also put back a more direct, obvious capital return in a way that, typically when I'm telling the story, it's like people buy tickets to a show and they go out to eat and they stay at a hotel or what, and it's all this indirect stuff. So I'm just curious if there's other models you've seen for the nonprofit, for-profit, how do we create tangible value?
Way to go. That's a great question, and thank you for your work in the space. I think Doc said it best is, we're students of incentives, really understanding what a win is for our partners and trying to build a business. We're not coming into any of our partnerships with a prescribed approach. We're interested in understanding what their win is and seeing how our win can accommodate that. And what that's resulted in for us is coming to, it's enlightened self-interest. Our partners so far are Taylor Sheridan. Anybody a Yellowstone fan? Landman, any of these? Yeah, there you go. I see one at the back, great. So Taylor Sheridan and his Bosky Ranch companies are backing us. The Dallas Mavericks are backing us. The Dallas Regional Chamber of Commerce, which has been voted the top chamber in the United States, is backing us. The T.D. Jakes Foundation is backing us, which has interests in media, entertainment, and technology. And what they see in us is the altruistic side of things, of course, but they also see us as a catalyst within North Texas that is surprisingly bringing to a table that we've created these unique, diverse, creative community stakeholders that are identifying in us a skilled workforce, right? So when we launched the DEA privately in April, Taylor Sheridan's chief investment officer, a friend of ours named Brendan Donnelly, was so overwhelmed by what he saw, he invited them on the spot to come learn what a production assistant does as they're shooting Landman. And so they will spend time shadowing Taylor potentially on a director's day. And so we're playing into the idea that regional productions will be able to source talent, superior talent from our program. The Dallas Mavericks see the same. T.D. Jakes sees the same. But they also want to see us produce more entrepreneurs in our host communities, because more entrepreneurs accelerates that host community's path to economic independence. And so our goal is to prove the model in Southern Dallas, where we're starting, and then lift and shift that into multiple other markets. We have sites on St. Louis, Detroit, maybe New Haven, I don't know, that share similar socioeconomic, demographic, psychographic makeup. Maybe that gets to you.
I want to add that opportunity to explore these beautiful young minds. You just never know what you're going to come back with. These kids were born in this era of these machines. They're connected in ways old people like me at 56 are not, and we all have a story. I am not unique in that AI is offering me the opportunity to where I wanted to destroy this life. AI is giving me an opportunity to relive it, so to speak. And there's all of this conversation about ethics and AI and all the terrible things that are going to happen. It's going to figure out how to blow up the moon or whatever, But I think that there's a person out there with throat cancer that are going to lose their voice, the only voice that they've ever known. They have a chance to upload their voice into a bank. There's probably a zillion people out there right now with that same issue. Over the next 10 years, 100 years, there are going to be zillions of people that need sort of the same issue solved that I'm solving right now through this process. Those are jobs, From those jobs come other ideas, and it's not about, for me, it's not about building a business as much as it is building a connection that helps me help somebody, And if you can help that one person, then that one person is a business. If you could see it, And so I'm looking at this as an opportunity, as I said, to create a legacy that's going to offer these kids jobs that don't exist yet. So I'm not worrying about what AI is going to take away. I'm more concerned about what it's going to provide in the way of new opportunities that we can't see yet.
Doc, tell us, when is the record coming out? Tell us about this project, the AI record.
I think 26 is going to be my year.
Okay.
Everything is probably going to show up in 26.
The movie.
Yeah, I'm in the gym a lot these days. Yeah. I want to look like somebody. Yeah. If I'm going to ask somebody for $1 million, I want to look like it. not have any problem asking folks for me. You know, I used to be afraid almost because people in my world, they see me on this level. They think I'm a legend, I'm an icon, I'm this, I'm that. But for the past 35 years, I've never seen myself in that light. I've always seen myself as the guy that failed, the guy that just lived a life of a failure. But now I understand that I didn't fail. I'm actually more powerful than any of those guys. None of those guys could have walked this path. They'd have probably jumped off the top of the building by now. But I'm still here, and not only am I still here, I'm vested in the idea of building a bridge for somebody else. So that anybody that falls the way I fell, whether it's deep in this substance abuse or alcoholism, whatever it is that holds you down, I could throw you a lifeline and snatch you up out of that stuff, because that's what we're here for, you know, to help each other. So if anybody wants to help me, you know, please feel free.
Well, that's the call to action I will repeat again, which is this is a call for help and support and also an offer of opportunity. You can do well and you can do good at the same time, and there's a team here, really impressive, powerful team with a powerful message that if it hasn't moved you, you're not paying attention. So I encourage you to, you know, get off your asses and get involved in something, whether it's this or something else that's relevant and important to you. And we have one last question up here.
Well, hi, I'm Kobe Smith, and I work at the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce. So I appreciate the Chamber of Commerce reference and the importance of meeting people there. But also D.O.C., thank you for your time. Like, as a huge hip hop fan, you're a legend. So don't ever downplay your success and all that you've done. Like, when I saw it was you here, I was excited, man. So I guess the question that I have, it kind of stems off of what you were saying earlier, right? So you talk about always reinventing yourself, and not many people can go from starting one of the most legendary hip-hop groups of all time to potentially losing their voice in a life-threatening accident to being relevant today. So what are the skills that you utilized that are transferable to what you're doing today, and how should people in this room apply those skills to their lives in order to be relevant and stay relevant with reinventing themselves throughout their lives?
Yeah, faith. You know, I have strong faith, man. I don't just believe, I know. And it is in the knowing, my friend. And there's a time and a place for everything. When I had my visitation, I began this slow climb back up, and I'm so close to the top, I can smell the money, I can feel it. And the Spirit says, you're going to have your access towards that $1 billion, but it's not for you, it's for them. And I understand that, and I rest in knowing that was the purpose for this journey, and I'm really happy about that. You know, I did a little research about Yale before I came, and its humble beginnings and where it came from, and the spiritual basis behind what they were trying to build. And here we are hundreds of years later, and they've created so many opportunities for a lot of the people that moved and shaped this land, you know. And I want to do that, you know. And so for me, it was almost a homecoming to come here to soak up that energy that's in Connecticut, that I could feel what they felt when they wanted to change the world, because that's what I want to do. And I got the faith and belief in myself that I can do it. I have the faith and belief that God doesn't make mistakes, and that everything that happened along that journey was purposeful, and that I'm here for a reason. And like the Spirit said, I'm going to walk in that purpose.
Please, for housekeeping, to change the tone a little bit, after this there is a reception across the way that we'd like to have everybody go to, but also take the opportunity to come meet these guys because they're here to do business. So let's not show friends, it's show business. So if you want to get involved or make a connection, this is a great place to do it. And please join me in thanking these two for their time.